per 100,000 compared to 159 per 100,000. So that's where we are. Okay. So first of all, thank you, Waseem Zaffar, for taking time out from your busy schedule and to talk about and inform our listeners about the Clean Air Zone. This is something that was on the European Council, the national government, the local council's agenda for a time, simply because we know that the amount of cars, the amount of pollution that are being emitted from the exhaust fumes, it is having a significant impact on people's lives. The air quality, especially on some of the most highly residential, highly built-up area, was just beyond sort of, I suppose, the acceptable limits, and it would have an impact not only on the environment, but also on people's lives. And when we are talking about lives, we're talking about respiratory, we're talking about asthma, cancer, and heart disease as well. So you had the unenviable task of implementing something that was acceptable, but at the same time, something that wouldn't penalize the Birmingham population. So all in all, I'm going to hand over to yourself. If you can, just give us a bit of background of the sort of process and the timeline it took for us to get where we are now.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. And can I say, first of all, thank you for inviting me to today's show. I'm a huge fan of your radio station. It plays a very important role in informing our communities about the key issues of the day. And the government-mandated Clean Air Zone is something that is of huge interest to citizens and people from outside who visit Birmingham, whether they work here or they visit family here. And I think the first thing to say about the government-mandated Clean Air Zone is the vast majority of people will not be impacted by it. We estimate, when we did the modelling some 12 months ago, that 3/4, so approximately 75% of people are currently driving compliant vehicles within our city and will not be impacted by the Clean Air Zone. And I know of people within Birmingham who are driving compliant cars, but they think they are driving non-compliant cars. So if I go back in terms of the timeline and then also touch upon what is a compliant car and what is a non-compliant car. So the government were taken to the court on a number of occasions by a group of environmental lawyers called Cllr, who operate across the world. And they challenge government, national government, regional government, local government, and other public sector institutions on ensuring that they're doing their duty to protect the environment. So the government were taken to task on a number of occasions. And finally, the government pulled together an action plan. And as part of the action plan, 6 cities were sent ministerial directions, which is the toughest guidelines or legislative powers that a national government has to bound the local government to do something. We were one of the first 6 cities, and they said we need to get our air quality levels, particularly nitrogen dioxide, to legal levels in the shortest possible time. And the legal levels they refer to are the World Health Organization levels of nitrogen dioxide, which is 40 milligrams per cubic meter. And the option the government gave us is to introduce a charging clean air zone. And there are a variety of charging clean air zones from A, B, C, and D. D is charging every single vehicle, including private cars, whereas B is just charging taxis and some of the larger lorries. C is charging all vehicles other than private vehicles. So we initially carried out some modeling in early 2018 on a clean air zone C. Well, we carried out 3 sets of modelings. One is do nothing, so just keep going as a city. Second one was on a clean air zone C, and the third one is on a clean air zone D. Doing nothing would ultimately take us into a far worse situation, and we wouldn't get compliant in the shortest possible time. C wouldn't make a dent into that illegal levels either. D would get us quite close to compliant. When I asked for E, there obviously isn't an E. So even by introducing the toughest clean air zone, the most challenging clean air zone in our city, we still do not get to the legally compliant levels in every location. And there's one particular site, which is just opposite the mailbox on the Queensway, which is of particular concern. Our modelling shows that even with the introduction of a clean air zone, we'd have to introduce some other modifications to the highway network to get that to legal levels. So in the summer of 2018, we consulted with the community. It was the largest consultation we ever had, and the vast majority of people who responded said we don't want to pay to drive in our city, and it's something we were expecting. But at the same time, we had the government ministerial direction and a government deadline of September 2018 to submit our full business case, which we did. And we informed the government that we will introduce a Clean Air Zone D. And at the same time, we put a caveat that we would need financial incentives, so a grant to help those that would be particularly hindered by this policy, and also some exemptions. We absolutely understand that some of the poorest communities are within the Clean Air Zone area. So there's a question asked, why did we choose a city centre? We didn't choose a city centre because it's a city centre. We chose the city centre because that is where the highest and most illegal levels of air pollution of nitrogen dioxide exist. They're, well above 40 milligrams per cubic meter, and that's why we chose the Middle Ring Road area within Birmingham.
Can I come in there, Waseem? I'm just going to bring you back to what you said about the consultation. You said that it was the most wide-ranging consultation that the council has. So in terms of what sort of format did that take place? Was that sort of online, or was that through email, or using your portal that you have, or was it? Because I'm just concerned that some of the people that aren't online or digital, were they actually canvassed for their opinion? And you mentioned that there was a reluctance by the feedback and the evaluation that you took place, that people weren't happy about not being able to go into their city centre and being charged for that. Because obviously, as you know, there's huge amounts of investment that's taking place in city centre. And the last thing that the city centre businesses require now is anything that will deter people from going into the city centre.
It's a very, very important question. So the vast majority of the consultation was carried out through the Be Heard online website. And we had over 10,000 people respond to that. We had hundreds of businesses and trade reps also respond to that. We also spent a lot of time going out to ward forums across the city, particularly within the Clean Air Zone area, to talk about the Clean Air Zone and also to get feedback and consultation responses through hard form too. I absolutely understand there are communities who are digitally excluded, and it's important to go out there. We also utilized as many opportunities as we can at the big events and the festivals that were taking place back then in the summer of 2018 to gauge as much opinion as possible. So I was just talking about
Sorry.
I was talking about the process. So the plan was to launch the Clean Air Zone on the 1st of January 2020. When the government was expected to pull together a considerable amount of the government expected to pull back a lot of the back office processes and systems, particularly IT system. So late in 2019, they informed us that they haven't been able to do so. And then some of that was passed on to the local authority to do very last minute. So we had to postpone the date to the 1st of January 2020 and then look to launch in the summer of this year. Very early into COVID, I wrote to the government and the two Secretary of States, Secretary of State for Transport and the Secretary of State for DEFRA, who are the two key political leads in government, asking them to amend the ministerial direction and also asking them to agree to the delay of the government mandated Clean Air Zone. They didn't amend the ministerial direction, which still expects us to get to compliant levels by 2021. What they did do was agree that we should delay the launch of the government mandated Clean Air Zone until 21. In recent weeks, we've been having conversations with Rebecca Power and Rachel McLean, two government ministers in both departments. Shabana Mahmood, the MP for Ladywood, and the leader of the council have joined me on those discussions. The government wanted us to launch relatively early into 2021, but we held out until the summer of 21, so 1st of June 2021, because we felt it was really important that the people in Birmingham had enough time to prepare whilst also dealing with the pandemic that we've got as it stands. We've also got secured substantial funding from government. So of those people who've been non-compliant, there's £39 million of financial incentives. So that's £39 million of financial incentives to support those And we work very closely in designing them. We spoke to trade unions, spoke to many stakeholders in the city and beyond to ensure that we were supporting those that absolutely needed the support. We liaised very closely with the local members within the Clean Air Zone, particularly the Member of Parliament, Shabana Mahmood. We've also agreed a 2-year exemption for those that live within the Clean Air Zone area. So the first time anyone driving a non-compliant vehicle in the Clean Air Zone area would be charged is the 1st of June 2023. Now, to come on to the final point before I go back to you for questions, people are wondering what is a compliant car and what is a non-compliant car. So a compliant car is a Euro 6 diesel. So most diesel vehicles manufactured after 2016. Euro 4 petrol, which is most petrol vehicles manufactured after 2006. So quite a long way away. And all hybrid cars are compliant. All electric cars are also compliant. So as I said earlier, approximately a quarter of the vehicles that are currently being driven in Birmingham before the financial incentives to help them upgrade are currently non-compliant, and we'll hope to be in a position by the time we launch that a lot more people are driving compliant cars because they can apply for the grants that we've got available. I'll hand back over to you. I'm sure there's a lot of questions.
Thank you. Really appreciate that sort of summary and the fact that you are aware that there's quite a lot of questions that are coming through. So the summary is that you are trying to do a targeted approach in order to improve air quality by discouraging the most pollutant vehicles from entering into the city centre, which has the highest recorded dates of the levels of nitrogen dioxide, which exceed the 40 microgram. And obviously, you're saying that it's the Euro level 4 for petrol and Euro level 6 for diesel. So it's about 5 years old for the diesels, and about 14-15 years old for the petrols. I think that's my understanding.
Can I just offer a point of clarification?
Yes.
Some manufacturers started to produce Euro 4 petrols and Euro 6 diesels earlier than others. And the best thing to do is to go on the online vehicle checker that the government's developed, which we estimate to be 99% accurate at this present moment of time. And if you type your registration plate in, it will tell you whether you're driving a compliant vehicle or a non-compliant vehicle. And that can be accessed through our website, brumbreeds.co.uk. Brum, B-R-U-M, breeds, breathes.co.uk.
So I do remember, Waseem, I think it was in the summer months where this particular vehicle checker had a bit of a glitch. Has that been rectified? Because I know 1 or 2 people are still saying that our vehicle is compliant, but on there is showing that we're non-compliant.
So there was an issue with that, and that's why we had to delay the Clean Air Zone. And the government was responsible for this. It's a very, I'm not one usually to defend the government, but it's quite a challenging task to pull all the data sets together that exist for vehicles, and they work very closely with DVLA to do that. We're told right now that it's 99% accurate, and if you are in any doubt about the result that comes back, please, contact your car manufacturer, and if you still can't get anywhere, drop the council an email and or contact us through that website, and we'll try our best to help you.
Thank you, Waseem. I'm going to go back to the top now. Scroll, mashallah, you are popular. There's quite a few questions. I'm just going to go with, please answer as succinctly as you can, please. There's quite a lot of comments here. Starting with Ikhlaq, if we all reacted to random class action, we would all be running around like headless chickens. Why is council wasting so much money on useless cycle lanes? What is happening about the grant available to taxi drivers who purchase compliant vehicles? I understand 1K was going to be given to them. How do they apply for them, or will licensing contact them directly as they already have drivers' details on this? Can I ask you to answer that, please?
It's a very good question. So anybody who's purchased a compliant vehicle recently as a taxi driver, they're still applicable. They can still apply for the grant, and they'll be paid in lieu of that. So there's £1,000 available to taxi drivers, private hire taxi drivers who upgrade to a compliant Euro 4 or Euro 6 diesel vehicle. So Euro 4 petrol or Euro 6 diesel is 1,000 available to them. If they upgrade to a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid vehicle, they can get a grant payment of up to £2,000. And if they go to upgrade to a fully electric vehicle or a long-range plug hybrid vehicle, they can attract a grant of £2,500 spread over 2 years towards running costs of the vehicle. So for a private hire vehicle, there's up to £2,500 available. You can apply again through the website brumbreeds.co.uk. We're hoping to really kick in our marketing and engagement with the taxi community again in the coming weeks. So operators and drivers, I was actually having discussions today with officers how best to do this, so they can expect more communication. But if people can spread the message, I know there's some excellent advocates within the taxi community. I was once one of them, and there's some really good brothers who work in that area, whether they're taxi operators, whether they're just activists within the taxi community. If they can spread this news, because we want as many people as possible to benefit from this. There's also up to £5,000 available for Hackney carriage vehicles. That's whether to apply for a retrofit solution that's been approved by the government CVRAS department. So it's an accredited retrofit solution. And there's also £5,000 available if you purchase an electric vehicle, and those two payments are spread over 4 years, so £1,250 a year for 4 years to help you with the running costs of your vehicle.
Just to come in there now, Waseem, on the point about the grants that you've made available now for taxi drivers, is it on a first come first served basis, and also what proof or documentation will they need? Because one of the taxi drivers who was aware that you were going to come in, they asked, they've got a vehicle that is isn't compliant. Obviously, he needs to trade that in, but he doesn't have the V5 logbook, which is something that is compulsory in order for them to be eligible.
So to answer the first part of your question, we think we've got enough money to support every single Birmingham licensed driver.
Yeah,
it is important that people understand they have to be a Birmingham licensed driver. As the rule stands at the moment, they should have owned the vehicle by the 10th of September 2018. And that's because that's when we submitted our full business case. We are currently having conversations about whether this date needs to be amended. But as it stands, it's the 10th of September 2018. They have a vehicle that does not meet the emission standard of CAZ. So it's a non-compliant vehicle, or they've recently upgraded to from a non-compliant vehicle. If you've got a compliant vehicle, you're ultimately not going to be eligible for a grant. You register and license a new vehicle with the council, so you look to plate the vehicle in Birmingham, and then you've also purchased a new vehicle that does meet the emission standards, or have approved work done on the vehicle, which means you've got the retrofit solution for the Hackney carriage. If you haven't got a V5 document, I'm not sure why you haven't got a V5 document, but if you haven't, again, contact us and let's find a solution. If the vehicle belongs to you, and obviously there's ways of proving that, and it's non-compliant, and you're eligible under the scheme, then we can certainly show you. There is approximately I think, just let me be absolutely precise, there's funding of £14 million for the taxi community. Wow. So I've been accused by some sectors saying that we've done more for the taxi drivers than other sectors. And then, my friends in the taxi community are not so happy as well.
So try get battered from both sides, really, sometimes. Yeah. But I know
there's something else as well available for taxi drivers. If you allow me, Mr. Ali,
please go ahead.
So we've put aside from the government money an extra 2.75 million to buy or to commission a company to purchase a number of electric taxi vehicles. So we're hoping to buy 50 electric taxis that can be rented out at cost maintenance rates, very low rates, to people who are coming towards the end of their careers as Hackney carriage drivers. So if you're in your late 50s, there's not long to go before retirement, you worked incredibly hard, you're not going to invest a substantial amount of money into a new electric vehicle, and your vehicle can't have the retrofit. This scheme is really to prioritize for those drivers, so they can take one of these vehicles. Possibly, we're still working through the details, but it could be potentially 50 vehicles rented out on day shift and night shift. There's 100 drivers that could potentially benefit. I know at the moment there's not much night work because of the challenges that COVID creates, but moving forward, hopefully that will benefit them. So we're currently working with the market on and starting the procurement process in terms of this project too.
These Hackney taxis that you're talking about, Waseem?
Yeah, these are Hackney carriage vehicles. Yeah,
the Hackney carriages. Okay, no, that's fine, no problem at all. On to the next one. How much are cycle lines? I think we'll dedicate the last maybe 15-20 minutes on cycle lanes. If you want to answer it by all means, but we will revisit this.
Happy to come back to it.
Thank you, sir. Why is the council wasting money using Canadian, which has been put back almost 2 years?
Can I respond to that?
Yeah,
So I think the very important aspect to understand about the clean air zone, and Akhlaq Mohammed has a right to his opinion, and I will always respect people's right to opinions. We've got people right across the country, right across the world, who are dying prematurely because of illegal and unsafe levels of air pollution. You speak to health professionals, and I, in a different role, spend a lot of time with health professionals. I know you, Mr. Ali, do the same. We work in the health profession. They will tell you that nearly all illnesses are related and hindered by illegal and unsafe levels of air pollution. We've got in inner city Birmingham, and I know mostly the viewers are from inner city Birmingham, some of the worst health inequalities there are anywhere. We've got, and particularly within the South Asian community, people with diabetic levels, heart conditions, and many other serious illnesses, and poor air quality impacts on them. There's no two ways about it. And it's not just a Birmingham thing. There are people across the world who are taking this issue very, very seriously. Whether you look at what the Indian government's doing, whether the Chinese government, you look at what they're doing in the United Arab Emirates, and even Pakistan more recently have been talking about the impact of climate change and air quality. And when you've got these poor levels of air quality, and we've seen one of the reasons we've had high levels of COVID deaths in some of the South Asian communities, some of the other BAME communities, it's been because their resistant levels in terms of their health has been poor. They've not been able to fight off this illness. And I think it's really, really important for us to understand that this is a very, very serious public health crisis that exists within our city, exists within our country, and exists across the world. And that's what we've got to get right. And it's not just the city centre. We want to have clean air in every single neighbourhood. And that's why we're pushing forward on the School Streets project. We're pushing forward on the clean air strategy, which looks at not just getting to set legal levels. Legal levels is the start. We need to get to safe levels in every single neighbourhood in this city. And that is a clear aspiration that I've got.
Thank you, Waseem. A couple of points that come to my mind is, personally, we were one of the first cities to launch clean air zones. So you mentioned a couple of international cities. So what lessons can we learn from those cities early that adopted clean air zone? Have they been successful? How far have they implemented the emission levels, and has that made a difference? The fact that you've got these cleaner cars going into the city centre, and also has any city done a U-turn on reversing the clean air zone? And you mentioned that this particular policies around the city centre, but we do also know you've got Stafford Road, you've got Tyburn Road. These are also veins, arteries going out of the city that are just as busy. We have high levels. So is there anything going to be done in areas, just Stafford Road, where we know there's high levels of BME population?
Thank you. So you asked me about 6 questions there in one question. So when I was able to travel, we've got European partners that we speak to, we share information, and we're part of a number of international networks too. One of the things that I've clearly established, other countries have moved quicker to electric vehicles than we have. So that's really helped, in particular some of the European cities. I remember being in Frankfurt some time ago in Germany, one of our sister cities, and I was hugely impressed with their electric vehicle infrastructure, but also the amount of electric vehicles that were on there. And the cleaner the vehicles, the less of an air pollution challenge that those particular cities have. There's also the issue that their rail is a lot more electrified than ours, and clearly I was traveling last week from Moore Street Station and saw the diesel trains there. It really does put the fear of God in me. We saw we know the challenges at New Street Station too, and the electrification of the train network has been a major failure of Her Majesty's government, this Conservative government. When Chris Grayling was in charge of this department, it was a huge mess, and I think we only benefited from the Cannock-Walsall line, the electrification of that particular line. You then asked about other cities. Leeds were due to introduce a Clean Air Zone B. So they would have, and it was a wider one, a citywide, or I'm pretty sure it's a citywide Clean Air Zone B, which would charge all taxi drivers, but not private vehicles. What they've established through COVID and the drop in traffic is that they will get to compliant levels as the government requested without introducing a Clean Air Zone. We saw traffic drop substantially in Birmingham too, but it's gone back up to, I think we're in the mid 90% of traffic levels in our city compared to pre-COVID, and air quality has gone back to normal. Plus, I think it's really important to understand that Leeds were introducing a Clean Air Zone B because the air quality problem was nowhere near ours. Our clean air problem is massive, and the fact that we've got a motorway, the M6 running right through the heart of our city, does not help either. And I'd argue that our air quality challenges are second only to London's challenges, and we know they've introduced the ultra low emission zone on top of their congestion charge that they've got. In terms of Tyburn Road and Stratford Road, so you make a very important point. I had a meeting with a member representing Tyburn Road as recently as a few weeks ago. We've got our monitoring stations based there where we monitor what we need to do, and that's why the clean air strategy is really important, that we look beyond the clean air zone and what other measures we can bring in. On the Stratford Road, working with National Express, our major public transport provider, we recently launched fully electric buses on the 6th route from Solihull to the city centre via Stratford Road. 19 fully electric buses going, which cost over £500,000 each, all going along that particular route. We've also decided to go down the route of piloting hydrogen buses. We've put an order in with NX for 20 hydrogen buses in our city, along with London and Edinburgh. Aberdeen, will be the first cities to introduce hydrogen buses. We're really excited about that project too.
Thank you, Waseem. I'm just going to scroll down to some of the comments now, and just if you want to comment, just tell me. 26.
I don't understand this question about.
Okay, we'll move on to this. You should focus on reducing council tax by making the council effective and efficient rather than an endless money pit. Okay, killing our business. With regards to the point about, the fact that there'll be less people going into the city, we've already heard over the summer that John Lewis, which is one of the real beacon of our city centre, has closed, albeit not because which hasn't even been introduced. But, have you done some sort of an analysis that there will be an impact on businesses, or how are you going to get people from cars going into city centre, which we know because of COVID, there's also been people sort of not going on to public transport, and they would rather go to, you've got your Perry Bar shopping centre, you've got Fort, you've got the Solihull one. What's your fears about the state of the shopping going into the next decade for business in city centre?
So there was a political group, the Conservative group on the council, said that the John Lewis are coming out of Birmingham because of the clean air zone. That's fake news. There was absolutely no evidence of that whatsoever, and I think the mayor of the West Midlands also confirmed that. So let's just leave that and consider that as fake news being spread. We're very confident. We've said that the vast majority of vehicles that go through the clean air zone area will be compliant. We know that people are upgrading. We know people that will benefit from the financial incentives, £39 million worth of financial incentives to upgrade their journeys, whether it's upgrading their vehicles or looking to get financial support towards public transport. There will also be exemptions. I also think that Birmingham will attract new visitors once people know that there's clean air there. And people are really conscious about their health and well-being, and particularly so after COVID. I had a lot of people contact me after the lockdown and when traffic was absolutely minimal in the city. They could see the clouds in the sky and how clean the sky was because there was less traffic on our streets. and I think more people are actually more people care about the environment. They value their green and blue spaces a lot more too, and I'm confident that when we get to safe and legal levels of air quality within our city as a whole, people will want to come and live here. People want to come and work here, because the other thing you've got to understand is, kids in Birmingham lose 6 months of their life because they grow up in Birmingham, which has got illegal levels of air quality. That's not me saying it. That's your doctors saying. That's your public health department saying. These are experts. Go and speak to the consultants at Children's Hospital who are based within the clean air zone area, but they are biggest supporters of this. They're absolutely demanding this. The British Lung Foundation are demanding this. The British Heart Foundation are demanding this. There's many school communities demanding that we tackle air quality challenges outside their schools. So there's a lot of backing, and I think people need to understand. Pre-COVID, we had a public health crisis that was air pollution. Post-COVID, inshallah, there will also be a public health crisis if we don't get to grips with it, and that is air quality still. We've got to deal with this. There is no alternative.
I think we've covered that one.
I'll come. Go back one. Go back one. Why aren't the councils have your clean air?
We've covered that, haven't we?
No, but let me just add a bit to that. So we were part of the first 6 cities that had a ministerial direction. There was other notifications, not necessarily ministerial directions, that went to a lot of other cities. I can assure you, Akhlaq Saab, that in the coming years, many other cities will have to go down this route. Manchester are starting off their consultation, and they are looking at a Greater Manchester-wide clean air zone. So not a city centre clean air zone, but a Greater Manchester-wide clean air zone. So there's also a number of other cities that are in the pipeline too. I don't think there'll be many urban settings in the UK and across the world, to be honest with you, that won't have to bring in similar measures to get a grip of the illegal levels of air quality that exists.
I tell you what COVID has done is allowed people to enjoy open spaces a lot more. You've got Muslim here who I know he's been doing something like 35 kilometers, every other day on his bike now. And that's because he had time and he invested in the bike. So he's certainly an advocate of cycle lanes.
Do you want me to respond to that, or are you going to come back to bikes at the end?
We will come. I think we will come back to that. So we'll just put that to one side. How can you prove deaths were caused? Did we touch on this, or
we haven't? This is a very good question. There has been some deaths that are now registered within death certificates as the cause of death being illegal levels of air quality. There's a number of national organisations that have done some work on this, and they estimate that in Birmingham, the estimate was a couple of years ago at 900, approximately 900 deaths per year linked to premature deaths linked to illegal levels of air quality. That's gone up to 1,200. So if you don't get a grip of this, what health professionals are telling me every day, these problems will grow and grow. So this is really a health matter. And just on taxi drivers and bus drivers, there's a university that's done some research which says that if you spend time sitting behind a steering wheel as often as bus drivers and taxi drivers do, they're 3 times more likely to be impacted by poor levels of air quality. So this is just as much about protecting the health and well-being of our taxi community, our bus drivers who spend a lot of time behind wheels. My late father was a taxi driver in the city before he passed away, and I sometimes wonder what poor levels of air quality, what impact that had on his health and well-being.
Just going to go around to some of these. So how much are they costing? I'm not saying they're bad. Okay, so this is about the cycle, guys. We are going to we are Cllr. We're just going through all the points and questions. What consultation was carried out? Was that under your remit, the Birchfield Road?
Yeah, I'll answer this. Yeah. First of all, let me clarify, because Javed Saab is referred to as the Birchfield flyover. There's quite a bit of confusion on what the flyover is. People I speak to, I often ask people, what do they think the flyover is? And sometimes they point towards Newtown, sometimes they point towards Aston Six Ways, some of them point towards One Stop. This is the small bridge that is directly parallel with One Stop Shopping Centre. So that is the flyover that we're removing to open up that space to improve connectivity into One Stop and outside. So there's been vast amounts of consultation done. There's work taking place at the moment. The flyover will come down, as well as the capping of the Birchfield Island. And the rather more difficult bit of the project is the capping of the Birchville Island, which everybody wants. I've not had any complaints about that. There's obviously been people opposed to the removal of the flyover, but you remove the flyover, you get excellent bus priority for our bus rapid transit next to our new bus station in one stop. Next to you get good access into our train station. You get segregated cycling through there. And importantly, I live in Lascelles, and we've always been using One Stop Shopping Centre. If you go into One Stop Shopping Centre from Lascelles or Aston, you go straight in. When you come out, you've got to drive around Perry Bar to come back out. If you come from Great Bar and want to get into, or towards Perry Bar and you want to get into One Stop, you've got to drive around the Birchville Island, drive down Aston, turn back around and go into One Stop. When this project is completed, the new layout that the removal of the bridge will allow us, you could drive into One Stop and out in both directions very, very easily. So this will save people on their journeys and the extra trips that they're having to make around neighborhoods.
No, thank you. On to the brother first come back. What help is council giving to taxi drivers with current situation? That's hardly business left for drive. That's a general point, really, rather than.
So I know many drivers have benefited from the offer that was available through the council, supported by the government, in terms of self-employed drivers. I think they were able to claim up to I think 80% of £2,500 per month over that period of time. And obviously, we've been encouraging the government to extend the furlough scheme as well. We're still in discussions with government. We think businesses, particularly the hospitality sector, need more support through the current challenges that we've got in Tier 2.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think Mr. Javed Akhtar is a real fan of yours. He's on a roll here. But he's already got down the effect of COVID-19. The clean air is in a final nail of the coffin. How do you access the grant for taxi drivers? I think you mentioned the portal that they can go on to apply for the grant, which is on a first come first served basis, as long as they've got all the documents.
Brumbreeds.co.uk is the best place to go and visit. It's got all the information around the financial incentives, the where you can check whether your vehicle is compliant or not, and also the exemptions. And you can also apply for these through there as well.
And for those cars that aren't compliant, Waseem, just remind us, it's a £8 daily charge that will be charged to vans and cars on a daily basis. And for the big HGVs, is it £50 per day?
For HGVs and buses, it's £50 a day. Some people ask, will the buses increase their fares? We're working very closely with the bus operators, and we know the vast majority, if not all the buses that will come through the clean air zone area will be compliant. National Express have informed us that they've bought their last diesel bus, which we very welcome, and they're trying to get more fully electric buses on the road. Their platinum buses are Euro 6 diesel compliant too. So it's £50 for lorries which are non-compliant, and £50 a day for buses which are non-compliant, and £8 a day for non-compliant vehicles. And I just want to reiterate, please go and check if your vehicle is compliant or non-compliant, because I know people who are driving compliant vehicles that they think are not.
No, and I know there's a lot of comments here. If you want to speak to Waseem directly, the number on Radio Aap Awaaz is 0121 682 9735. And with regards to the, there's a lot of people that go through city centre to go into the children's hospital. There's surgeries there as well. And if you're a disabled patient, is there any exemption, or have you thought about those particular specialized groups?
So we're working with the hospital, and there is an exemption. So if your child is taken ill to Children's Hospital, you can benefit from an exemption, and that will be processed through the hospital itself. So there is the best thing to do is visit the website. There is so much information there. It's unbelievable. We've worked incredibly hard, and so if you earn less than £30,000 a year, and you work within the clean air zone, you can also benefit from the non-compliant scrappage scheme. So if you're driving a vehicle which is non-compliant, and you earn less than £30,000, you can get £2,000 towards a bus pass, train ticket, or £2,000 towards a compliant vehicle. There is also a 12-month exemption for anybody who works in the city centre and earns less than £30,000 as well. So we've absolutely worked very hard and engaged and consulted with our trade unions to ensure that we support the lowest paid get compliant, because often they're the ones who are driving the non-compliant vehicles.
No, that's fine. Thank you for that. And I think it's worth reiterating, if you're on that sort of ring road, I think it's called the A4540, I think it is, you won't be charged. It's only if you go into the city centre. So if you come off the M6 and, for example, are going round towards the Matalan, going all the way around, sort of, towards Hagley Road or A38, so go round, there's no charge. But if you go through the city centre and through some of the underpasses coming through McDonald's, then if your car is non-compliant, you will be charged £8. So I think it's worth reiterating that for our viewers and listeners. Okay, upgrade your vehicle and get your car stolen. Birmingham City Council. Okay, before setting out cycle is, can we get help? So someone has asked, with the online portal forms, is there some sort of assistance that yourself are able to give some of those maybe people that English is not their first language?
We've worked with Sustrans in Birmingham, who were a national organisation that support us on these sort of projects to recruit clean air champions, Brombri's champions from within communities. We've also worked very closely with organizations, particularly within the clean air zone area. And the plan was, obviously pre-COVID, to go into those community centres and ask people to come along there and work with us. We've worked very closely with Shabana Mahmood, who initially did some school gate surgeries too, to encourage people to apply for the mitigations and exemptions. And obviously in the new COVID world, we have to rely a lot more on remote working, as we're currently doing. So one of the things we want to do is obviously encourage community activists to get more involved. We'd love for more community activists to become Brombri's champions, who can help people in the community. I made a plea. I was informed by a friend of mine who works in the taxi sector that there's people out there who are willing to help for a fee. Please, can I discourage you not to pay anybody to help you? If you are struggling to complete a form, try to get hold of somebody on your local councillor, a local community activist, speak to your local religious institutions. They can always contact us, and we'll be more than happy to help you. The forms are very, very
taxi unions, haven't you, Waseem?
Sorry?
Taxi unions?
Yeah, taxi unions, informal taxi groups. Then you've also got the trade unions. We work very closely with our trade unions. We want to encourage them to support their members too. So there's a whole host of support available. And if anybody still is struggling, I'd encourage you to get hold of your local councillors. I'm sure they'll be more than willing to help whilst we adhere to COVID guidelines too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a point here by Mr. Malik Rahim, who says, how come my 2015 Merc is ULEZ free, but I still have to pay in Birmingham? Can you just maybe just address that point?
It's a very, very good question. So if your vehicle is compliant in London's ultra low emission zone, it should be compliant in the government mandated Birmingham clean air zone. If you're still getting that notification today, I don't know, there's been improvements in the vehicle checker. Please drop me a note and I'll get that looked into. Also, if you could check with your car manufacturer and just to confirm that your vehicle is a Euro 6 diesel, then that vehicle should be compliant. And as I said, we understand the vehicle checker to be currently working at 99% compliance levels.
Yeah, I think this is very important. We are really suggesting that people should invest in electric or hybrid cars. But one of the key things is making sure there's enough charging points throughout city centre. So can you touch on that point, I think, which Mr. Zabdi is referring to?
This is an excellent question from Mohammed. A few weeks ago, we announced a partner to install 394 electric vehicle charging points, which will prioritise the taxi community. I'm also looking very, very closely at what other councils have done around installing vehicle chargers, in particular in inner city communities. If you've got a drive, you can install through a government grant for quite a good price an electric charger, and you can park your vehicle on that drive. If you live in a terrace house, and we know 1/3 of our residents live in terrace homes, that it's close to impossible to put a charger in. And we're looking at how technology is evolving around this, particularly around lampposts, chargers underground that people can pull up if they get a parking spot. So there's some work, an urgent work taking place around this, and we have to improve EV charging infrastructure right across our city, because as we know, diesel vehicles will disappear in the very near future.
Absolutely. We've stressed how important it is to reduce the amount of nitrous dioxide that we have in our environment, and also improve the air quality. So if it's important for the city centre and for people that live and work there, why haven't we mandated it across the whole of Birmingham and the wider West Midlands?
So when we carried out the modelling, looking at the illegal levels of nitrogen dioxide, those areas which have more than 40 milligrams per cubic metre of NOx, the vast majority of the areas came up as the city centre ones within the clean air zone area within the Middle Ring Road. And the further, so we also did some modelling on what would happen, because people would ultimately clean up their journeys, upgrade their vehicles, and 1 or 2 locations just outside this area would also get them to compliance levels too. And the impact of the clean air zone will be far greater than the clean air zone itself. There'll be a big positive impact in the inner city area, but the further away you go in the city, it'll diminish. And what we're trying to do is ensure that we through the clean air strategy, we bring in other measures to get to safe levels. There may be legal levels, but we got to get them to safe levels.
There's a question that's on your screen now, but I'm going to widen that out as well for those businesses that may have multi vehicles and they're in the freight or in the delivery business. You're not talking about just one car now per resident or per household. They got maybe a fleet of cars or vans or trucks. What support is there? If you can also address us to that point as well, please.
There's approximately £10 million in the HDV fund. Sorry, in the heavy duty vehicle fund, there's approximately £10 million to support businesses to upgrade their lorries. I know that many of the large freight delivery suppliers have upgraded their vehicles, because they know these measures are coming in, not just in Birmingham, but in many other areas too. We also in Birmingham are looking at the e-cargo bikes.
Yeah.
Within our city, we've got a pilot there, which is looking at how we can work with a number of business improvement districts, universities, the council, and other partners to make the deliveries cleaner and greener. We will also look at freight consolidation units too, just outside the clean air zone, and how that works. So that's one area of work we're currently working on.
No, that's fine. I think for the last 15 minutes, Waseem, if it's okay, we may move away from the clean air zone and talk about also the cycle lanes. Is that also part of the clean air zone? Is that a separate policy that has been worked on?
So there's a clear policy shift in Birmingham to look at more sustainable forms of travel, to reverse health inequalities, to improve air quality, reduce congestion in the city. There is the over-reliance of private car, and in particular single occupancy private car in the city, and we want to try and rebalance that. Every day in Birmingham, there's a quarter of the journeys, over 300,000 journeys that take place by car, which are less than 1 mile. And I know that not everybody can walk a mile or cycle a mile, but if many of us can shift those less than 1 mile journeys to walking and cycling, they're usually to your local school to pick up and drop off your kids, they're to the local high street, to the local coffee shop. For some in the city centre is to your workplace. If we can shift those journeys to more sustainable modes, think about the impact that will have on congestion in the city, how that will be reduced. And we know that congestion in Birmingham costs in the region of £12 million a week to Birmingham's economy. Think about how that will free up the space for those that absolutely need to utilize utilize private car, but also the health impact you will have. I walk now a lot more than I used to. I've been using public transport as much as I can, less so since COVID because of my own underlying health issues. But it helps me every day get my 10,000 steps in. And my watch, and ultimately that's also had a positive impact on my health and well-being too.
Yeah, so we won't see you in a Lycra anytime soon, then, will we?
Possibly not.
No, that's fine. So I think the three main routes I can think of where the cycle lanes have really flourished, and these were done more or less overnight, Waseem, is the A34, is the A38, and the A47. I've not been to the gym for the last 6-7 months, but I went a couple of days ago and I saw on the A47, on the one side coming out of town, both there's a cycle lane, but it's two, one going in the opposite direction as well. But we'll come to that. There's a lot of points that we want to make, but I suppose at the same time, from my point of view, unless you provide the provisions and make it safe for cyclists to use these cycle lanes, you're never really going to get that take. Because I, for one, really want to, take up cycling, but I'm fearful of riding on the road and cycling on the road. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation. So I'm just going to read through some of the previous points that we said were going to come.
Can I just clarify something? You said the A38 and the A34 cycle lanes came overnight. Those are the two blue segregated lanes. They didn't come overnight. They've been a long-term project as part of the Birmingham Cycle Revolution. The new pop-up cycle lanes, approximately 15 kilometers of them in various places across the city, have come as part of the tranche one of the active travel project that we've embedded in since COVID with the support of the government. So we had a £1 million government grant to introduce, I think, 7 pop-up cycle lanes, 2 low traffic neighbourhoods, pedal and the high street social distancing project, the park and pedal scheme, so like park and ride, so you park up somewhere and pedal in, and a number of other measures that we've introduced through then, where we've worked. And when I say experimental traffic regulation orders, you can introduce under that legislation a measure as a temporary measure for up to 6 months. If you are then to make it permanent, you have to carry out a full statutory consultation, because you need a traffic regulation order to do that, to make anything permanent. So these are not permanent; these are temporary. And the ones that work, where we get we think are being utilised and support our aims to create a network of cycling, a safe cycling space across the city, we will then proceed to a traffic regulation order with the consultation of communities.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. Do you want to touch that? How much are the cycle lanes costing?
So the
£1 million grant.
Cycle lanes, along with the other projects, cost just over £1 million. But that is 15 kilometers of cycling, the low traffic neighborhoods. So there's a whole host of work, and they have to be safe. You have to carry out road safety audits. There's no point. You can't put something in without making it safe, even if it's a temporary measure too. So the designs, the road safety audits, the development of the schemes, you put all that together. That's how much it costs.
The common recurring gripe from a lot of motorists, especially, is that you've invested quite a lot of money, and you reduce the lanes to half of what it was, and these cycle lanes aren't occupied. It's probably around 1%, 2%, and what you are doing is you are now allowing the one lane of motorist traffic to be piling up, and that's causing more pollution, more time for people to get to their destination. Isn't that sort of contrary to what you're trying to achieve?
We accept that the cycle lanes are not used as well as they could be, but we will see a rapid increase of people cycling if we've got an infrastructure and a network of safe cycling space across the city. We know that because we work very closely with cycling groups. A survey recently we conducted said 75% of the respondents said if you create safe space, we will consider cycling as a not just a use of leisure, but a key commuting form of transport. And we know from speaking to colleagues right across the world that if you create safe space, that does improve the take-up of cycling. We're not going to become Amsterdam overnight. We're in a gradual journey towards that, but we have to rebalance the use of private car in our city, because at the moment, whether your journey is half a mile or 20 miles in Birmingham, your default position is private car, and we have to move on from that.
Yeah, I know Boris Bike's scheme when he was a London mayor was proved to be extremely popular. Are we going to get something similar from yourself? So Waseem's sort of maybe a free or a concession on bicycles that we can sort of go out and afford to buy.
So Birmingham City Council recently launched, working with Transport for West Midlands, the e-scooters trial for 12 months, and that's located currently in the city centre. Will expand out to other areas too. The bike scheme, the bike share scheme, should have been launched last year, but Next Bikes, which were contracted to do so, are a key provider in many European cities, pulled out very late in the day after they've done the soft launch. We're hopeful that in the coming weeks, the bike share scheme in Birmingham will be launched and across the West Midlands by the spring of 2021.
Absolutely. And also we mentioned earlier, I know we used Muslim as an example, we have seen an increase in the number of people taking up bicycles. For example, pre-COVID, I think the uptake was around 1%. Now at this moment in time, it's around 7-8%. So we are seeing there is an appetite for people to take up cycling. We just have to make sure that it's a compromise win-win for cyclists, for motorists, and for general commuters as well. And that is the interest that you're trying to balance and try and keep all parties happy, I suppose.
I've not seen those figures, but what I do know is that there was, during COVID, in particular the lockdown, there was a massive take-up of cycling. I used to walk the towpaths on the Birmingham Canals navigation, and we would, there was overnight literally a massive increase in people using the bikes. We've, through Big Birmingham Bikes, handed out over 7,000 free bikes. The orange bike. We're hoping in the tranche 2 we can get another 1,000 to hand out, and that'll be for people who need them as part of their social prescribing and their health journey, or it's also available to people who can't afford a bike as well. So just to answer this question from Aftab, we've set up a number of there's some distortion there in the voice. We've set up a Mr. Ali, what's that noise that's coming out?
Yeah, just sorry, it's the kettle boiling. Sorry.
The kettle boiling. Okay, sorry. So I was just saying that we've supported a number of community cycling clubs. There's one in Smallheath Park. There's one here in Lascelles. There's one in Handsworth. There's one down south as well. There's a number. I think there's 10, 12 right across the city. I want to see them double in the coming months. And we'll hopefully get one in Ward End Park too. Where I know Mr. Ali and his friends and colleagues are very, very active. And a bike hub is where Big Birmingham Bikes will put 20 cycles in a safe place that communities can come and borrow them and utilize them. I come across people all the time who tell me they've got 3 kids. So mother and dad and 3 kids, that's 5 bikes. That costs an arm and a leg. And in the current climate, it is a huge challenge to them. So it's not just about having infrastructure, it's about having it's also about having the access to bikes, which is really important.
Thank you. I don't know whether this is about the cycle lane now. What did the council consultation about the A34 and then ignore the 15? You know what he's referring to here?
I do know who this is.
Is this the flyover, is it? Yeah.
Sorry?
This is the flyover we touched on earlier.
So the 15,000 plus petition relates to the flyover. We always take petitions and consultations very, very seriously. We look at them. Ultimately, we have to make the decision we think is right. And when a petition of 15,000 comes in, it's discussed. It was discussed at a full council meeting. It was discussed both formally, publicly and privately by members of the cabinet and the administration. And we feel the removal of that bridge next to One Stop is vitally important in our efforts to create sustainable modes of transport. The 400 plus petition about a bar license that you're referring to is the African Village Bar and Restaurant, which I opposed their license for an alcohol license, and I opposed that because my constituents in Lascelles felt passionately that this was the wrong move. The licensing subcommittee agreed with that decision. My constituents, their lives have been hugely been impacted negatively by a public house which operated until a few months ago very close to this site. And I think I will do all it takes to ensure that there's a safe environment and the quality of life of my constituents is protected at all times. That's why I supported that particular petition, and I make no apologies about speaking up on behalf of my constituents.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Waseem. A couple of quick fire questions, if I may. First one was around that vehicle checker, really, about the inconsistency. So someone's just asked whether the London vehicle checker is different to the ones that we have here. Is that why we're having discrepancy between those that are compliant and non-compliant?
So this part of the deal for the clean air zone, for the government mandated clean air zone, was delivered by the government. The vehicle checker that was developed in London was developed by Transport for London. I still haven't got to the bottom of why some of it comes different, but I've been informed by my officers that the government informs them after testing and improvements that it's at 99% compliant rate.
No, that's fine. And the other one, someone just mentioned, you mentioned this CVRAS. There seems to be only one garage in the Birmingham that's providing that retrofit. Do you know of any more that have applied or are going to be offering that service?
I found out earlier this week on a YouTube channel debate that a couple of other providers have now had their retrofits accredited. I'll be honest with you, I've had a number of people come to me with the technology, and we're happy to work with anybody as long as they get their accreditation from government. There's no point us supporting a scheme which isn't accredited, because if you go and get that use that unaccredited provider, whether it's through a grant or not without a grant, and your logbook isn't changed because it's not recognized, you'll still be charged. So there's no use in doing that. So our whole aim is to ensure that there's accredited providers. And I know that technology is being developed. Other people are coming into this market too. So
the final point, I know it's been a long day for you, Waseem. Thank you for your time and being very open about, answering and commenting on these points here. If no one uses the bike lanes as they should over the years, is that something that's going to be constantly reviewed? And also, I did read somewhere as well that, around Cottridge, there's also been quite an uproar from residents about a cycle lane there as well. So is this constantly being looked at by yourself and by your department?
Yeah, we're always reviewing decisions. As I said, the pop-up cycle lanes that most people are referring to are there for a maximum of 6 months before they're made permanent. And we made that commitment. Before any of these pop-up cycle lanes were brought in, councillors representing those particular areas were sent an email and communication around our plans to introduce these measures. And because they're experimental traffic regulation orders, the consultation takes place during the life course of the temporary measures.
Waseem, we've come to the last question or comment. I'm going to give 30 seconds to you just to, I suppose, give you a final conclusion or remark really about, how excited you are and how much work and effort has gone into the clean air zone and how much, forward you are looking to the positive change this will bring into our city centre and to people's lives.
I know a lot of what we discussed today is controversial. It divides communities. There's quite a lot of issues, and the clean air zone is a challenging policy, and without the level of financial incentives and exemptions, it will be incredibly hard, and it will still be hard for some people. But the key aim for me and the key aim for Birmingham City Council is to reverse health inequalities, to make our city a cleaner place, a healthier place, a greener place for our kids to grow up. And these tough decisions we make today will be decisions that our future generations will look back upon us and say they were very, very important decisions that helped them. These aren't decisions to have a detrimental impact on businesses. And we've got the packages, we've got the support to help businesses to get cleaner and greener vehicles and to support them through these channels. So, visit the Brumbreed's website, talk to us, talk to local councils if you've got any concerns. Always happy to hear from people, positive or negative or challenge.
Thank you, Waseem, for your time. Really appreciate it. And hopefully maybe next year around June, July time, we'll bring you into our studios if things settle down.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ali, and thank you to your team at Awaaz.
Good rest of your evening. Thank you, sir. That was Waseem Zaffar giving us a detailed wording of the Clean Air Zone policy. Until next week, please look after yourselves and each other.